is a great question, and I think part of the misunderstanding is thinking that science is somehow the only tool for gaining knowledge about the reality, about our world. And this really has to do with the question about epistemology. And epistemology is simply a fancy word for how we come to know certain things. And it turns out that science, yes, is a tool. It is an epistemological tool that helps us gain knowledge about our world. But what's interesting to realize is that science is not the only tool, nor is it the best tool for figuring out all kinds of things about our world. Now again, science is a valuable tool. It does tell us about the natural world, so we can figure out about the composition of certain rocks on our planet. We can figure out all sorts of things that science can tell us. However, it turns out that there are other tools that we can use to gain knowledge about our world that are indeed more efficient, more accurate, quicker at gaining that knowledge. And so therefore, it turns out that science is just one of them that happens to have been elevated above all other tools. And so I want to introduce you to some other ways that we can come to know knowledge about our world. Now, in addition to science, we have another epistemological tool, and that is reason or logical deduction. Now, this can also tell us or help us to gain knowledge about our world. So, for example, if I was to say to you that I am taller than my wife, and then I was to also tell you that my wife is taller than my daughter, and then I was to ask you, am I taller than my daughter? Well, you could know that the answer is yes, that I am taller than my daughter, and you can figure that out by logical deduction or by reason. And that is because reason or logical deduction is another way of gaining information about our world. You just simply use the process of reasoning to figure that out. Again, you didn't need science to figure it out, but yet you can know with certainty that I am taller than my daughter. Another epistemological tool that can help us gain knowledge about our world is called testimony. And so, for example, if I wanted to know what the weather is like in San Diego right now, I could simply call my wife and ask her, well, what's the weather like in San Diego right now? And she could say, well, it's raining, which, of course, that probably isn't true because it rarely rains in San Diego. But the point is that she could tell me immediately, and I'd have immediate knowledge about the external world by the virtue of testimony. And so testimony can tell us lots of things about the world. If you want to know about the results of a sports game, or if you want to know about perhaps who a killer is, if you have an eyewitness testimony to a crime, that person can tell you about the identity of the killer. So again, testimony can be another tool, another epistemological tool that helps us to gain knowledge about the world that we live in. And then a third example of another epistemological tool, and again, there are others, but I'm just giving you three here, is introspection. If you want to know about what's going on in your internal states inside your mind, all you have to do is introspect, and this will give you knowledge also about our reality, our world. So for example, if you wanted to know, well, what am I thinking about right now? All I'd have to do then is introspect and attend to my sort of inner feelings and thoughts. And then I might realize that I'm thinking about Haagen-Dazs chocolate peanut butter ice cream, which is a thought I have quite often. Again, introspection is an epistemological tool that can tell us information about reality, specifically about our inner states. Now, what's significant about this particular tool is that there's no scientific experiment that you could perform that could tell me that information. You could hook up electrodes to my skull. You could have a neurosurgeon cut open my brain and look inside it with tweezers or a scalpel and never see any awareness of chocolate peanut butter ice cream. Have no idea whether I'm sad or whether I'm thinking about my mother wearing a red dress in the kitchen, okay? Because none of those are accessible by the tools of science. Because science as an epistemological tool is limited in that sense. Whereas if I want to know what's going on in my internal states, all I have to do is introspect. And so this again is another tool to help us to gain knowledge about reality. So notice that knowledge gained through testimony, through logical deduction, and through introspection can have certain advantages that even science can't offer. So they can be quicker. Oftentimes you can be more accurate and confident that your answers are correct, right? So for example, if I introspect and think about my feelings, it's hard to imagine being wrong about that. But it's possible that a science experiment could be mistaken. When I introspect or when I ask a person their testimony about gaining knowledge about something that they know, I gain immediate knowledge, whereas science can sometimes take weeks, months, or perhaps even years. Now, again, my point is not to somehow denigrate science below other forms, but it's to not elevate science above everything else as if it's the only or the most perfect tool to gain knowledge about the external world. It turns out that there are many epistemological tools that we can use to gain information about the world. Science is just one of them, but again, it's not the only one, nor is it necessarily the most accurate, the most quick, and the most efficient one.